Tonight, your Bobcats will be playing in a match. We'll get that match started shortly. We have roughly 10 minutes left on the clock here before we start. Thanks for joining us this evening. We'll be back with you in a few minutes as you watch the team continue to warm up. We're down to about 5.5 minutes now before the start of this game. Again, we'll be back with you shortly, just testing out our mics as we get set here.
6'3" junior from Miami, Florida, number 7, Hector Sonia. Outside hitter, a 6'6" freshman from Hillard, Ohio, number 8, Robert Bowling. Outside hitter, a 6'7" sophomore from Plainville, Illinois, number 9, Wes Rodman. At center, a 6' freshman from North Canton, Ohio, number 12, Michael Ball. And at the parallel, a 6'1" sophomore from Doylestown, Pennsylvania, number 18, Chris Wolfslayer. The head coach for the Bobcats is Henry Twain, and he's assisted by Rick Toshi. Thomas, Carolinas, and Lees-McRae encourage you to promote sportsmanship by student-athletes, coaches, and staff. So, family, racial, or ethnic comments or other intimidating actions.
Put it wherever you want it.
Student-athletes, coaches, or teams represented will not be tolerated in our grounds or removed from the site competition.
Hello and welcome to this men's volleyball matchup between your Lees-McRae Bobcats and Belmont Abbey Crusaders. The starters for the Bobcats at the two outsides, number 2, Spencer Graff, number 8, Robert Bolin. The middles will be number 5, Ethan Gardner, and number 7, Hector Serviat. Your liberos, Chris Wolfslayer, with opposite Wesley Rogman, and setters, Michael Wall. For Belmont Abbey, they have Leo Maxwell at outside. Their setters, number 1, Brennan Davis. Middle blocker, 25, William Morris. Other outsides, 15, Pierce Paulapol. Liberos, Rob Valentine. Middle blocker, Brian Law. And those are the starters for this matchup today. The Bobcats will start off with the serve. Bolin is serving for the Bobcats. Valentine with the pass. Davis sets Morris in the middle. His hit goes out of bounds, point for the Bobcats. Serving again is Bolin. Davis sets Maxwell on the opposite. He goes cross court and goes in, point for the Crusaders. Maxwell is serving for the Crusaders now. Bolin with the pass. Wall sets Garner. His goes way out of bounds. Wailed. Point for the Crusaders. Bolin with the pass. Wall tries to save it, unable to. Point for the Crusaders and an ace for Maxwell. Maxwell's serve goes long, and the Crusaders were appealing for a touch on that, but no touch was called. Points for the Bobcats, a missed serve for Maxwell. Gardner's the next server for the Bobcats. Scavenge Rogman with the attempt for the Bobcats. Davis with the dig. Maxwell saves it. Rogman with the dig. Serviat sets Graff on the outside. Graff goes cross court, gets the kill. Valentine was unable to get the dig. Point for the Bobcats. Maxwell gets set. Rogman digs it up. Wall sets Graf on the outside. Graf goes into the block with the tool, point for the Bobcats.
Great job by Graf there, cutting at an angle so it deflect out of bounds when he didn't have much of the court to shoot it.
Good block by Wall and Servia right there. Paul gets the attempt to get in control of the block. Wall sets Graf on the outside. He goes into the block. That time it goes straight down, point for the Crusaders. Serving for the Crusaders is Morris. His serve goes into the net, point for the Bobcats. Serving for the Bobcats is Wall. David set goes over the net, and Bobcats were unable to handle that, point for the Crusaders.
Bit of a scramble there.
Schaefer's serving for the Crusaders. His serve lands in for an ace, point for the Crusaders, and Schaefer's serving again. Graf with the pass, unable to handle over the net. Davies sets Lawn in the middle. Wall sets Rogman on the outside. He goes over the block and in for the kill. Graf serve goes just long, out of bounds. Serving for the Crusaders is Paul. His serve goes long, another missed serve point for the Bobcats.
Missed serves are a thing to look for here in these men's games. You never know what's going to happen.
Serving for the Bobcats is Serviat. Long gets the attempt in to kill it in the middle. Servia was unable to handle that attack. Point for the Crusaders. Serving for the Crusaders is Long. Wall sets Gardner in the middle. That's dug up by him. Bolin was about to play that, but let it go, and the line judge says it's out of bounds, point for the Bobcats. And serving for the Bobcats now is Rogman. The Belmont Abbey coach is talking to an official about that last call. Maxwell with the pass. Davis sets Maxwell on the outside. He goes line, dug up by Rogman. Bolin sent it over, but a double contact called on Bolin right there. Point for the Crusaders. Serving for the Crusaders is Davis.
We didn't redirect the ball or nothing. The ball's driven at him hard.
Bolin with the pass. Ball saves it, sets Bolin. He just rolls it over. Valentine with the dig. Davis sets Maxwell, who goes cross court around the block and gets the kill for the Crusaders. Davis is still serving for the Crusaders. Wall sets Bolin on the outside, and that attack goes around the antenna out of bounds, point for the Crusaders, and Davis is still serving. Bolin passes, Wall sets. Bolin on the outside goes off the block and out of bounds. Nice tool right there by Bolin and get the point for the Bobcats. Bolin serving for the Bobcats now. Valentine was unable to handle Bolin's jump serve as that goes into the stands. Ace for the Bobcats and Bolin. Bolin's serve goes into the net, point for the Crusaders. Maxwell serve. Bolin passes it, Wall saves it, sets Rogman in the back row. Rogman goes around all three blockers and in on the back line, kill for the Bobcats. Gardner serve and Maxwell passes it. Schaefer gets set on the opposite. And that's a double block shared by Serviat and Graf as that goes down, point for the Bobcats. Davis sets Paul on the outside. He tried to go line around the block, but that shot goes out of bounds, point for the Bobcats as the Bobcats take a 13-12 lead now. The Crusaders coach switched Valentine and Paul in rotations for serve receive as that worked as the serve goes out of bounds, point for the Crusaders. Serving for the Crusaders is Morris.
We're tied here at 13-13.
Wall sets Graf. Graf rolls over the block. Saved by Maxwell and Davis. Sent over by Schaefer. Wall sets Rogman in the back row. Goes off the block. Maxwell was on the ground, unable to get that dig point for the Bobcats. Serving for the Bobcats is Wall. Maxwell with the pass. Davis sets Lawn in the middle as that gets called down. Kill for Lawn and the Crusaders. Schaefer's serve goes to Graf. Graf passes it. Wall sets Servey out in the middle. Unable to. Bolin was there to send it over. Davis sets Maxwell in the back row, who cuts it. Wall with the dig. Wolsayer sets Graf on the oppo. Graf rolls over Valentine with the dig. Davis sets Paul on there, who tips it to Rogman, who digs it up. Wall then sets Bolin on the out in the big ball. Schaefer digs that ball up. Davis sets Paul on the outside, who gets blocked by Serviat. He then gets blocked again by Serviat and Graf, but the Bobcats get called for a net violation on the block of Serviat and Graf. Point for the Crusaders.
You don't really see those long rallies here in men's volleyball. It's pretty interesting to watch.
Schaefer's serve goes to Bolin. Bolin passes it. Wall sets Graf. Graf goes over the block as Maxwell is unable to get that and gets the kill for the Bobcats right there. Graf goes short serve. Lawn passes it. Davis sets Schaefer on the outside, or the oppo back row, and gets the kill right there for the Crusaders. Paul serving for them. Graf with the pass. Wall sets Bolin, gets called for a double contact. Point for the Crusaders. Pole serving again for the Crusaders. Bolin was unable to handle the serve as it goes over the net and out of bounds. Henry Tron of the Bobcats calls a timeout there with the score 18-15.
This broadcast is brought to you by the Sport Management Program at Lees-McRae College. The broadcasters are students in the Sport Management degree program. Love sport? A degree in sport management can help you work in it. Why not do what you love? Study sport. Lees-McRae Sport Management.
Coming out of the timeout, the Bobcats are down 15-18, and they have a good amount of missed serves and miscommunications that have led them to be down in this hole, as they have competed very well with Belmont Abbey lately in this set, and that's a surprise coming off of a defeat like they have. Serving for the Crusaders is Pole. Bowling with the pass, Wall sets Rogman on the opposite. Rogman hits it into the block of Maxwell, a long down point for the Crusaders.
It's a bit of a low set there, kind of hard for him to reach.
Pole with the serve for the Crusaders. Wolfslayer passes it off the ceiling. Wall gets there, sets Bowling on the outside, who tries to go over the block. Blocked Wolfslayer with the dig. Bowling then rolls over the block. Davis sets Maxwell on there, and a combined block by Serviat and Rogman gets that down point for the Bobcats. Serviat serving for the Bobcats now. Valentine's unable to control that serve by Serviat, and that is an ace for Serviat and the Bobcats. Maxwell with a good kill off a solo block from Rogman, hit right around that point for the Crusaders. Long serve. Bolin passes it. Wall sets Bolin on the outside. Goes over the block. Dug up by Pole. Davis sets Maxwell on the outside. Dug up one-handed by Wolfslayer. Goes over, and Maxwell then goes over for that kill. Long with the serve again for the Crusaders. Graff with the pass. Wall sets Bolin on the outside. Bolin goes into the block, and he almost dug it up, and point for the Crusaders. A substitute is coming on for the Bobcats, as 13 Tyler Doyle is coming on for number 2 Spencer Graff. Long still serving for the Crusaders. Bolin passes it. Wall saves it. Wall sets Rogman all the way to Oppo. He digs it. Davis digs it up. Pole sets Schaefer, who then gets blocked by Bolin and Gardner, and point for the Bobcats right there. Serving for the Bobcats is Rogman. Maxwell unable to handle that, but Pole is there. Maxwell sends the free ball over. Wolfslayer goes over and digs that up. Wall sets Rockman in the opposite back row. Goes off the block of Maxwell and Morris. Out of bounds, point for the Bobcats. Rockman serving once again for the Bobcats. Maxwell passes it. Davis sets Morris in the middle. Dug up by Rockman. Dug up by Wall. Saved by Rockman. Schaefer digs up that. Davis sets Maxwell on the outside as that goes straight down off the block. Point for the Crusaders.
Bobcats doing the best that they can to fight back, but they just can't seem to get that lead on the Crusaders.
Timeout was called by Henry Tron and the Bobcats with a score 19-23 in favor of the Crusaders.
Going into this timeout, both teams are tied with 9 kills each. The Crusaders have 5 attack errors and the Bobcats have 6. There's quite a few blocking errors by the Bobcats.
Coming out of this timeout, the Bobcats are looking to figure anything out to get some momentum going into the second set, as this set is not lost, but down by 4. They need a little work and hold the Crusaders to 1 point, and while they go on a little run right here, they need this serve. Doyle passes it. Wall sets Rockman on the opposite, who goes down line. Valentine digs him up. Maxwell sets Polpol in the back row. Woolside with the dig that goes over the net. Davis saves it. Morris sets Maxwell on the outside. Rockman digs it up. Doyle saves it. Wall then goes over. Valentine passes it. Davis sets Schaefer on the oppo, who goes out of bounds off the antenna. Point for the Bobcats. Bolin serving for the Bobcats. Valentine passes it. Davis sets Schaefer on the outside. Goes off the... Try to go off the block of Wall and Garner, but he was unable to. The entire Belmont Abbey team and coaches are asking the refs for a touch call. They are unsuccessful in that, as the line judge said no touch on that block. Point for the Bobcats. Bolin serving again for the Bobcats. Pole passes it. Davis sets Maxwell on the opposite. Dug up by Bolin, saved by Woolsayer. Rockman sends it over. Davis sets Maxwell again on the opposite. Dug up by Woolsayer, saved by Wall. Graf hits it over. Davis sets Maxwell once again on the opposite. Dug up by Woolsayer again. Wall saves it, sets Graf on the outside. Graf tried to go tip right out by the block. He's unable to, blocked by Maxwell. Point for the Crusaders. And that is set point for the Crusaders at 24-21. Maxwell serving for the Crusaders. Bolin passes it. Wall sets Graf on the outside. Graf goes off the block for a 2-0 point for the Bobcats, as they are fighting back with the set point for the Crusaders. Scores down 24-22.
It's looking like these tools are going to be what's working best for the Bobcats right now. Can't seem to get around that block.
Garner with the serve. Popo with the pass. Davis sets Schaefer on the right side. Off the block, Rockman with a nice dig. Wall sets Graf on the outside. Graf goes, Davis hits it. Popo had to send it over. Free ball. Bolin passes it. Wall goes to Graff, who goes line and bounces it. Point for the Bobcats, 24-23, as the whole gym and bench erupts for the Bobcats as Graff just nailed that one straight down. 24-23, Gardner serving for the Bobcats. His serve goes to Valentine. Valentine, Davis sets Maxwell on the back row as he was able to get there and get that kill as the Bobcats fought back right there, but the Crusaders win the first set, 25-23.
Want to be more involved with helping Lees-McRae athletics and our student athletes? Join the Bobcat Club. Information's on our website at www.lmcbobcats.com. Become a supporter today. Coming out of that set, we see the Bobcats with a total of 11 kills and Belmont Abbey with 10. The hitting percentage for Belmont Abbey is a little lower with a .083 and for the Bobcats .125. I don't know what else to say. Already? Huh? Already? I don't know what else to say.
Just kind of run down the stats here for that first game. It's really interesting as you compare the stats because this was one of those matches where it's really tough to nail down just one thing that set the teams apart. Hitting percentage was 125 for the Bobcats, 83 for the Crusaders. So the Bobcats actually out-hit the Crusaders despite putting up 2 less points on the board at the end. And then we start to dig deeper into those stats, looking for where those 2 points might have gone. Bobcats with 1 less ace than the Crusaders, but teams relatively equal in other areas. The Crusaders picked up 4 blocks to the Bobcats 3, so there's another point. That might be the 2-point difference right there when you think about it, although the Crusaders did have 1 more kill. So relatively right now, evenly matched in the statistics. Really, the Bobcats should be slightly favored in a way. They've dug more balls. Their court presence and playing balls, keeping balls off the floor is doing well. They just have to find a way to convert that into 1 or 2 more points without letting the Crusaders do the same.
Starting the second set, no lineup changes for either team, and serving for the Crusaders is Davis. His serve goes out of bounds, point for the Bobcats. Serving for the Bobcats will be Bolin. Maxwell passes it. Davis sets Schaefer on the outside. Goes around the block. Wolfslayer digs it up. Wall wins the joust ball as the whole Bobcats bench and players on the court are going crazy as Wall went up with one hand and was able to get that joust ball, point for the Bobcats. Bolin serving again for the Bobcats. Maxwell passes it. Davis sets Maxwell on the opposite. Blocked by Graff and Gardner. Valentine sets Schaefer at the opposite. Wolfslayer digs it. Wall saves it. Graff sends it over. Davis sets Maxwell, who hits into the antenna. Point for the Bobcats. Bolin serving once again for the Bobcats. Valentine passes it. Davis sets Schaefer on the outside. Rogman digs it up. Wallace sets Graff, who goes deep. Pole passes it. Davis sets Maxwell, who gets the kill on the opposite, going in between a block of Graff and Gardner there, right in front of Rogman. Point for the Crusaders, and Maxwell is serving for them. Bolin passes it. Wall sets Rogman on the back row. Davis digs it. Valentine goes there and sets up Schaefer, who's unable to get it, running into the ref stand. Point for the Bobcats.
Those are always tough ones to get.
Serving for the Bobcats will be Ethan Gardner. Maxwell passes it. Davis sets Morris in the middle. A net violation called on Hector Servi out of the Bobcats. Point for the Crusaders. Morris serving for the Crusaders. His serve goes out of bounds. Point for the Bobcats.
Seems like the Crusaders are trying to target our number 2, Spencer Graff, trying to get us out of system.
Walls serving for the Bobcats. Valentine passes it. Davis sets Lawn in the middle, who goes and gets a kill right in front of Wall. Point for the Crusaders. Schaefer serving for the Crusaders. His serve goes out of bounds. Point for the Bobcats. Graff serving for the Bobcats. Graff serve. Valentine passes it. Davis sets Lawn in the middle. Servia was able to block it. Davis sets Popol on the outside. Wall digs it up. Graff plays it off the ceiling. Wolfslayer will send over the free ball short. Schaefer passes it. Davis sets Lawn in the middle. Almost dug up by Wall, but unable to. Point for the Crusaders. A kill for Lawn.
Bit of a scramble there for the Bobcats.
Pole with the serve. Bolin with the pass. Wall try to go up for it, but he's not able to since he is back row, so he was not able to get the block up and go for the joust ball. The Crusaders took advantage of that point for the Crusaders. As miscommunication for Wolfslayer and Bolin in the back row right there, as it went right in the seam of them, and they weren't sure who was getting that seam on that serve. Ace for Pole and the Crusaders. Pole serve then goes into the net. Point for the Bobcats. Then serving is Serviat.
The Bobcats had quite a bit of a lead there, but the Crusaders served their way back into it.
Valentine passes it. Davis sets Schaefer in the back row. Graff with the one-handed up, but Maxwell gets the kill on the overpass by Graff. Point for the Crusaders and kill for Maxwell. Long serve. Bolin passes it. Wall sets Gardner And there is a net violation called on the Crusaders, but it don't matter because Gardner was able to get that around the block and for the kill for the Bobcats. Rogman serving for the Bobcats. Rogman's serve goes into the net point for the Crusaders.
Tied here at 8-8.
Davis serving for the Crusaders. Walls sets Bolin, who gets around a block. Maxwell digs it up. Davis sets Schaefer on the opposite. Schaefer's shot goes long, and Rogman dodges it. Point for the Bobcats as a missed hit for Schaefer. Bolin serving for the Bobcats now. Valentine passes it. Davis sets Schaefer on the outside as there was a block by Wall and Gardner. And the ball goes deep, and Crusaders were unable to get it up. Point for the Bobcats. Bolin serving once again for the Bobcats. Bolin serve trickles over the net for an ace. Point ace for Bolin and the Bobcats. Bolin serving once again for the Bobcats. Popo with the pass. Davis sets Maxwell at the opposite. Maxwell tips. Gardner with the dig. Wall sets Bolin in the back row, who goes. Popo saves it. Davis sets Maxwell, who goes down the line, and it's called in by the line judge. Point for the Crusaders.
Bobcats wanted to argue that a little bit, but they gave in to the call.
Maxwell serving now for the Crusaders. Maxwell's serve goes tails to the left and goes out of bounds. Point for the Bobcats. Serving for the Bobcats is Gardner. Popo with the pass. Davis sets Maxwell in the back row. Goes off the block of Serviat and Wall out of bounds. Point for the Crusaders. Morris serving. Morris serve goes into the net. Point for the Bobcats. Wall serving for the Bobcats. Valentine passes it. Davis sets Lawn in the middle. Dug up by Rogman, but Wall was unable to get there. Point for the Crusaders and kill for Lawn. Schaefer serving for the Crusaders. Grab passes it. Wall sets Serviat in the middle. He goes off the block and gets the kill as Schaefer was unable to handle that. Point for the Bobcats and kill for Serviat. Substitute for the Crusaders as number 3, Colin Lockwood, is coming on for Schaefer to pass. Graf serving for the Bobcats. Lockwood was unable to handle that. Lawn sets Maxwell Popo up as a net violation is called on Rogman of the Bobcats. Point for the Crusaders.
Quite a few net violations being called here in this game.
Popo's up to serve for the Crusaders. Bolin passes it off the seat and Wolfslayer saves it. Sets Bolin, who tries to go high hands. And no touch called by the line judge, but the up ref changes his overrules and gets the touch on the Crusaders. Point for the Bobcats. Serving for the Bobcats is Serviat. Serving on serve goes just long. Point for the Crusaders. That's another missed serve for the Bobcats.
Like I said earlier in this broadcast, missed serves are always a thing to look for here in these men's games.
Serve for the Crusaders is long. Long serve goes long. Point for the Bobcats. Rogman serving for the Bobcats now with the score 16-13.
Seems like it's a serving game right now.
Timeout is called by the Crusaders as the Bobcats, as I mentioned, are up 16-13 in this second set, down 1-0.
Give you a little rundown of the stats here again. The Crusaders are up with 20 kills on the Bobcats 15. Although the Crusaders have had more attack errors, they are 10 to the Bobcats 7. Bobcats have had a few more blocking errors with 4 and the Crusaders only having 1. The Bobcats are up in digs with 22 compared to the Crusaders 18. Both teams have had quite a few serving errors, the Crusaders having 10 and Bobcats having 5.
Coming out in the second set, the Bobcats were able to carry some of the momentum that they gained at the end of the first set, as the Bobcats have an early lead after the first time out, 16-13, and Rogman is back to serve for the Bobcats. Davis sets Morris in the middle, who gets blocked by a combined block of Bolin and Gardner, as Davis was unable to get it after that, and point for the Bobcats. Rogman serving once again.
Bobcats are up 17-13.
Maxwell passes it. Davis sets Maxwell on the outside as Wall was unable to get there, as Maxwell hit right over the block. Point for the Crusaders.
Those are always nice hits to watch, getting high over the block, going straight down.
Davis is serving for the Crusaders now. Bolin passes it. Wall sets Bolin on the outside. Bolin tries to go over the block, unable to able to dig it up, and Wolfslayer saves it. Bolin sends it over this time. Davis sets Maxwell, who goes around the block. Wolfslayer digs it up. Wall sets Rogman in the back row. Rogman goes cross court. Davis digs it up. Valentine sets Maxwell. Maxwell goes over the block, dug up by Bolin. Overpass, but Maxwell is able to get there, and Toole, Gardner, and Wall point for the Crusaders, and kill once again for Maxwell.
Crusaders are doing the best to fight back. They are closing the gap 17-15.
Bolin passes it. Wall sets Bolin on the outside. Bolin's trying to go off the block, unable to. Gardner was able to get that up. Wall sets Rogman, who goes off the block of Maxwell, and that gets called out of bounds. Maxwell and the Crusaders assistant coach is very unhappy with that call, as the head coach just said it went straight down, as Bolin is now serving for the Bobcats. Maxwell passes it. Davis sets Maxwell on the opposite, blocked by Graff, dug up by Maxwell, and that block goes straight down, as the Bobcats are starting to get a lot of momentum right here, and the whole bench is happy, cheering, court, everything. The momentum is straight on, as the Valentine of the Crusaders are asking the upref to watch something, as Bolin is now serving.
Seems like the momentum has switched from the first set to this set.
Maxwell passes it. Davis sets Schaefer on the outside. That ball goes long, unable to hit any hands. He was going for high hands, as They say in volleyball, and Bolden is back to serve once again for the Bobcats. But before he serves, we got a timeout by the Crusaders.
As the second timeout is called by the Crusaders coach, they are currently down 15-20 to the Bobcats, even though they won the first set. Never really know what's going to go on in these games. Crusaders are currently up in kills with 22 compared to the Bobcats 16. The Crusaders have 4 service aces while the Bobcats only have 3, but they do have 10 errors compared to the Bobcats 5.
Coming out of this timeout, Bolden is serving for the Bobcats with the score 20-15. Maxwell passes it. Davis sets Maxwell. Maxwell goes around a block of Graf as Rogman was unable to get that up point for the Crusaders. Maxwell back to serve for the Crusaders.
Crusaders coming out of this timeout, fighting back, wanting it.
Woolslayer passes it. Wall sets Graf at the outside. Graf goes off the block as Valentine and Maxwell collided, and Maxwell looks a little shaken up right there on the court. Gardner serving for the Bobcats. Popol passes it. Davis sets Popol. Blocked by Wall as that goes up. Maxwell gets it. Davis sets Lawn in the middle, dug up by Rogman. Wall wins the joust ball against Popol. Davis sets Maxwell in the back row. Maxwell goes over Gardner with the dig in the back row. Rogman gets set at back row, and that goes out of bounds, point for the Crusaders.
Score is currently 21-17 Bobcats.
Substitute for the Crusaders has 21. Carter Eck is coming on for Brian Long to serve. Or, I'm sorry, coming on for William Morris to serve. Graf with the pass. Wall sets Serviat in the middle. Davis gets the dig as Maxwell sets Schaefer on the oppo. Wall sets Graf. Graf goes over the block. Eck with the dig. Davis sets Maxwell on the back row, and that his big attempt goes into the net point for the Bobcats as another hidden attack and error for the Crusaders. Substitute is coming on Morris for Eck, and Libro is back on for the Crusaders. Wall serving for the Bobcats with a score 22-17 in favor of the Bobcats. Maxwell with the pass. Davis with the set to Morris, dug up by Bolin, saved by Wolser, sent over by Graf. Maxwell with the big ball attempt. A double block by Serviat and Rogman as the Bobcats thought it was down, but they realized they hit the foot of Schaefer and was up, but luckily for the Bobcats, the Crusaders were unable to get it over. Wall serving again for the Bobcats. Maxwell passes it. Davis sets Maxwell in the back row. Maxwell goes high hands off the block, unable to get it. The call for the touch as the Crusaders bench and players are asking for that touch once again, as it is now set point for the Bobcats at 24-17. Wall serving. Maxwell with the pass. Long goes for the attempt. but there is a net violation called on Hector Serviata of the Bobcats. Schaefer serving for the Crusaders now. Wolslayer passes it. Walls sets Rockman on the outside. Goes off the block. Popo with the dig. Davis sets Maxwell in the back row. Rolls over. Walls digs it up. Wolslayer with the underhand set to Graff, who goes cross court. Gets that dug up overpass. Bowling goes there. Walls saves it. Gets it to Rockman, or gets it to Serviat. Davis gets it to Popo at the outside. As Valentine gets it up off the block, Davis then sets Popo once again on the outside, and he's able to get that around the block of Serviat and Graff, and Wolslayer was unable to handle that point for the Crusaders.
Crusaders once again doing their best to fight back in this set.
Schaefer serving once again for the Crusaders. Graff passes it. Wall sets Graff out the opposite. He goes around the block and gets the kill as the Bobcats win the second set 25-19 and tie up the game 1 set to each.
Coming out of that second set, each team has won 1. The Crusaders have had a total of 25 kills, while the Bobcats have only had 18, struggling to keep it up there. Both teams have had quite a bit of attacking errors. The Crusaders with 16 and the Bobcats with 8. It's interesting to see how the Crusaders have had more errors, yet they're still keeping up with the Bobcats.
As we are back for the third set, and the Crusaders make a big lineup change as they switch setters from Brennan Davis to number 10, Bryce Sullivan, as the Bobcats have no change at all in the lineup. As I mentioned, the Crusaders have a new setter in number 10, Sullivan. The Bobcats will start off with the serve, and Bolin is serving first. Maxwell passes it as Graf goes up to and fakes, taps it as he gets the setter distracted. Point for the Bobcats. Bolin serving once again. Bolin's serve goes out of bounds. Point for the Crusaders. Serve for the Crusaders is Maxwell. Bolin's pass. Wall sets Graf, who goes around a block. Sullivan was unable to handle that. Valentine gets it over Morris, then sends it over. Wolser sets it to Wall sets it to Graf, who goes for the around the block attempt. Rogman with the great dig. Gardner saves it, but Morris goes up for the over pass kill as the Crusaders get the point. Morris serving for the Crusaders. His serve almost trickled over the net, but unable to as point goes to the Bobcats, and serving for the Bobcats is Wall.
Those missed serves, man. His fault.
Maxwell passes it. Sullivan sets Lawn in the middle, but he was unable to get that set high enough for Lawn, and he hits it into the net. Point for the Bobcats. Wall serving once again with the score 4-2 in favor of the Bobcats.
Those low sets are always tough to get over.
Valentine gets it. Sullivan sets Schaefer on the opposite, who tries to roll and go high hands, but unable to find any hands on that block. Point for the Bobcats.
Bobcats trying to take the lead early once again.
Wall serving. Maxwell passes it. Sullivan sets Lawn. Woolsayer now sets Graf on the outside. Wall digs it up. Woolsayer sets Rogman on the opposite. Rogman goes and free balls it over, but that goes out of bounds. I don't know what was going through the head of Rogman right there.
He got a little turned around.
Point for the Crusaders as Schaefer is serving for the Crusaders. My bad. Wall set Serviat in the middle as that set as low. Once again, another low set from setter to middle, this time on the Bobcats, and Serviat and Wall. Point goes to the Crusaders. Serving again is Schaefer. Woolsayer passes it. Wall then goes underhand set to Rogman at the outside, who gets blocked by Sullivan and Law as that goes straight down. Point for the Crusaders as the Crusaders tie it up 5-5 with Schaefer serving still.
Crusaders are not ready to give it up this early. They fought back. Now they're back to 5-5.
Wall sets Graf, but miscommunication as Woolsayer sends it over. Maxwell then goes back row, dug up by Wall. Woolsayer sets Rogman on the outside. Valentine sets up Schaefer at the outside, goes up. Woolsayer with the dig. Rogman saves it off the ceiling. Wall tries playing it, but it goes around the antenna. Point for the Crusaders. Miscommunication for the Bobcats as Henry Trotter of the Bobcats is not happy as he calls a timeout and talk to his team with the score now 6-5 in favor of the Crusaders.
Thank you for watching this broadcast of athletics from Lees-McRae College. As a college, we have one mission. We educate and inspire students to approach life and work from a creative, collaborative, and critical perspective in preparation for diverse careers and environments. Regardless of where you are and where you want to go, our expert facility and committed staff will help you get you there. Find out more at www.lmc.edu.
Coming out of that timeout by the Bobcats, Schaefer serving for the Crusaders, up 6-5. Bolin passes it, Walls sets Graff on the opposite, who goes, attacks, Rogman saves it, Graff again with the attempt, goes off the block this time, Valentine and Sullivan were unable to get there. Point for the Bobcats as Graff hit that off the block, and Graff is now serving for the Bobcats with the score 6-6.
Those high balls off the blocks are really tough to get when you're in the back row.
Graff serve trickles over the net as Long was unable to get there. He tried to pancake that, and he was unable to point an ace for the Bobcats and Graff.
It's a tricky one there.
Pole passes it. Long gets the set. Rogman sends it over. Rogman gets it. Bolin goes off the block right in front of Valentine and Maxwell. Point for the Bobcats. A kill for Bolin.
Bobcats taking the lead here again.
Valentine with the pass. Sullivan sets Maxwell at the outside. Wolsayer with the dig. Wall sets Graff on the big ball, who gets that kill.
Graff is really stepping up this game.
Graff serving for the Bobcats once again with the score 9-6 in favor of the Bobcats. His serve goes into the net. Good serving run right there for Graff to give the Bobcats the lead. Popo with the serve for the Crusaders as that goes out of bounds. Point for the Bobcats.
We're at a total of 18 missed serves between both teams right now.
Serviat serving for the Bobcats right now. Sullivan sets Maxwell, who gets around the block of Rogman and Gardner, finds that hole and gets that kill. Point for the Crusaders. Serving for the Crusaders is Long. Wolfslayer passes it, goes over the net as Wall tried to get it, but unable to. Point for the Crusaders and ace for Long. Graff passes it, Wall goes, sets Bolin on the outside. Bolin goes off the block. No touches called, 4 touches for the Bobcats as point goes to the Crusaders as Crusaders tie it up 10-10 with Long still serving.
It's a very back and forth game right now. They keep tying it up. Bobcats taking the lead. Crusaders fighting back.
Wall sets Rogman at the opposite, who goes line, and that's a massive kill around a big block of Maxwell, and Morris gets that kill for the Bobcats.
The whole gym erupted in excitement there for a big kill.
Rogman serving for the Bobcats now. His serve goes into the net. Point for the Crusaders. Rogman looks a little shaken up. I don't know if it's his knee or his ankle, but I do know that he is having pains with his knee last couple of days at practices and everything. Sullivan serves. Wall sets Garner in the middle. Garner then goes up for it. Wolfslayer saves it. Wall sets Rogman at the opposite as Rogman gets it dug up by Popo, saved by Valentine. Sullivan sends the free ball over. Wolfslayer gets it. Wall sets Bolin on the outside. Bolin goes and gets it out of bounds as I saw Wes Rogman wince and limping now as he grabbed his knee, as he's been complaining a couple days of his knee being in pain. Let's see if that affects the Bobcats offense. Graff passes it. Wall tries to set Bolin. He's unable to get that tack over. Point for the Crusaders as the Crusaders get a 2-point lead at 13-11 with Sullivan serving.
Bobcats are looking a little more scrambled right now as the Crusaders start to take the lead.
Sullivan's serve goes long, point for the Bobcats. Bolin with a good serve. Schaefer gets set, tips it over. Rogman gets there. Miscommunication by Wall and Wolfslayer as the Bobcats are just miscommunicating right now. The Crusaders have Maxwell back to serve for them. Bolin with the pass as that goes deep into the stands, almost hits us. As that one really up in the stands, aced by Maxwell and the Crusaders as they get a 15-12 lead. That serve goes out of bounds, and that's good for the Bobcats right now as Wolfslayer and Bolin are having a few words to each other, and now Bolin and Rogman are, as those are three of the main captains for the team, and they butt heads a couple times in games and practices, I've noticed. Gardner with the miss serve for the Bobcats.
Bobcats are currently at a total of 9 missed serves, while the Crusaders are at a total of 14.
Serving for the Crusaders is Morris. Wolfslayer passes it. Wall sets Serviat. Serviat then goes to Serviat. A net call is called on the Crusaders, as the head coach of the Crusaders wants an explanation about what the official's call was, as she's confused by the call the hand signal he gave. But serving for the Bobcats now is Wall. Maxwell passes it. Sullivan sets Lon in the middle. That goes down, but doesn't matter as Serviat is in the net. Point for the Crusaders.
Crusaders have taken the lead and stuck with it, 17-14.
Wolfslayer goes up for that pass as he tries to take it with his hands and unable to, as that's an ace for Schaefer and the Crusaders. Wolfslayer passes it. Wall sets Rogman out of outside, who gets blocked. Wolfslayer with the dig. Bolin sets Rogman, who gets the kill. Point for the Bobcats. Substitute for the Bobcats as number 3, Colin Lockwood, comes on for Schaefer to play back row for him. And also coming on is 21, Carter Eck, on for 15, Paul. Sullivan sets Maxwell on a big ball. It goes off the triple block of Bolin, Serviat, and Rogman, and Wolfslayer was unable to get there. Substitute for the Bobcats says 13, Tyler Doyle is coming on for number 2, Spencer Graff. Eck is serving now for the Crusaders with a score 19-15.
It's interesting to see how many substitutes both teams are doing, as you don't usually see that in men's volleyball.
Rogman with the attempt as Valentine gets it up, and Sullivan was able to keep it alive. Wolfslayer with the pass. Wall sets Serviat in the middle, gets blocked, saved, and everything. As Wolfslayer gets called for double contact, as he is very livid right now, as he was concerned about it, and Wolfslayer is complaining a little bit along with Bolin and the whole Bobcats right now, as their morale has gone down. Eck is serving once again, and Eck's serve goes long. Let's see if the Bobcats can turn this around right here with the missed serve. Serviat serving for the Bobcats as another substitute, this time serving as freshman number 6, Joseph Valadez, comes on for number 7, Hector Serviat. Joseph is their Bobcats' usual setter, but he had a concussion and just easing back into play now, so Wall is taking the duties over for now. Eck gets the attack in the back row, and that's blocked by I believe it was Gardner and Bolin, maybe Rogman, unable to see. Point for the Bobcats, though, as Valadez is serving again for the Bobcats with the score 17-20.
Seems like the Bobcats are calming down a bit, trying to keep their composure.
Maxwell gets a set as he goes, and everything goes off the block tool of Rogman and Gardner, as Maxwell and Gardner are sharing a few words in between and laughing and everything. Good to see after a couple of the complaints that we've been hearing. Long serve goes long as the Bobcats get that point. They're only down 3 now. They close that 5-point gap. Rogman serving for the Bobcats with the score 18-21. Maxwell with the pass. That goes over. Gardner passes it. Wall then goes up, sets Bolin on the outside, who gets blocked as Wolstair was calling for help, trying to get it, but he was unable to. Rogman and Wolstair are both frustrated as the substitutes coming on for the Crusaders, as Schaefer's coming back on for Lockwood. Timeout is called by Henry Tron of the Bobcats with the score 22-18, tied 1-1 for the sets.
A bit of a comparison in stats here. The Bobcats currently have 25 kills to the Crusaders 30. Going back to the service errors, the Crusaders have a total of 16. That's almost half a game, while the Bobcats only have 9. The Bobcats are up in digs with a total of 36, while the Crusaders have 31. The Bobcats still have a bit more blocking errors with a total of 5 to the Crusaders 2.
Crusaders serving with Sullivan serving. Walls sets Rogman, as the Bobcats are having a lot of miscommunications right now, as Walls set was too low for Rogman, as that back row blue ball, as the Bobcats call it, was too low for Rogman. Sullivan's serve goes to Bolin. Bolin passes it. Wall sets Gardner in the middle on a 31, and he was able to get that down in front of Valentine, kill for the Bobcats and Gardner. Substitute for the Bobcats is Spencer Graff is coming on for Tyler Doyle to play front row. Bolin serving for the Bobcats. His serve goes long, as it is now set point for the Crusaders, with Maxwell serving at 24-19. Bolin passes it, goes over. Wall tries to joust Ethan Gardner, gets that. Sullivan then goes a back set to Morris, who gets that down straight for a kill, as the Crusaders win the third set 25-19 and now lead 2-1.
It's been a very back and forth match, as the Crusaders take their second win compared to the Lees-McRae one. It's interesting to see how much substitutes. I couldn't think of the word. It's interesting to see how many substitutes both teams are putting in right now. You usually don't see that in men's volleyball. You usually just stick with your starting lineup and have your libero come in for your middles. But it seems to be working for the Crusaders as they've won 2 sets compared to the Bobcats 1.
We are back here for the fourth set between the Crusaders and Bobcats. Crusaders have a 2-1 set lead over the Bobcats as the Crusaders are sticking with the third set lineup that they did. Woolsayer gets it. Wall sets Graf. Graf gets it over Sullivan, dumps it over. Woolsayer was able to get that up as Rogman, as Bolin gets it over Sullivan, then gets it. Maxwell gets the attack, goes off the block tool for Maxwell and the Crusaders. Graf passes it. Wall sets Sherby out in the middle, dug up by Valentine. Sullivan then sets Schaefer in the back row. Rogman gets that dig as it goes and hits a Sudan as Wall is unable to play that and misread it. Point for the Crusaders.
Crusaders are coming out fighting in this set.
Polpol with the serve. Woolsayer with the pass. Wall goes over and sets it over. Schaefer goes, passes it over. Sullivan then sets Polpol in the back row. That goes into the net. Point for the Bobcats. Serving for the Bobcats will be Serviat. Serviat's serve goes long out of bounds. Point for the Crusaders as serving for the Crusaders is long. Graf passes it. Wall sets Bolin on the back row, but Woolsayer had the cover as Bolin missed it, and Woolsayer sent it over. Maxwell gets set on the outside as he goes over the block of Wall and Gardner. Down point for the Crusaders. Long serve for the Crusaders. That serve goes out of bounds. Point for the Bobcats. Serve for the Bobcats is Wall. Polpol with the pass. Sullivan sets Maxwell at the outside, who goes around a block of Rogman and Gardner. Point for the Crusaders.
Seems like the Bobcats need to get out of their heads a little bit. The Crusaders are coming out swinging this round.
Sullivan with the serve for the Crusaders. Graf with a great kill in between a block of Morris and Maxwell. Point for the Bobcats, and Graf is back to serve. Graf's serve goes short as Morris tried to play it and he was unable to. Point for the Bobcats and ace for Spencer Graf.
Bobcats fighting back, closing the gap here, 4-5.
Polpol passes it. Bolin with a massive overpass kill, as that was what they call a 10-footer straight down on an overpass kill, no block. Graf with the serve once again. Polpol with the pass. Sullivan sets Maxwell, who goes off the head of Bolin and out of bounds hits the antenna. Gardner tried playing that, unable to. Bolin saves it. Graf then sends it over. Valentine digs it up. Sullivan then sets Maxwell in the back row, goes off the head of Gardner. Saved up by the roof, and it's unable to play it as the Bobcats another miscommunication and misread off the ceiling.
Quite a big scramble there.
Point for the Crusaders, and Maxwell is serving for them. Graf with the pass. Wall sets Graf at the big ball. His attack goes out of bounds. Point for the Crusaders. Maxwell serving for the Crusaders. Bowling with the pass. Wall sets Gardner as he fans on that one, as they call that in volleyball, and was able to trickle in on that line. Point for the Bobcats, a kill for Gardner. Gardner's now serving for the Bobcats. Sullivan sets Morris, who tries to go hands on Serviat, unable to find any hands on that block, and that goes out of bounds. Point for the Bobcats.
Bobcats closing the gap, 7-8.
Gardner with the serve. Sullivan sets Schaefer, who goes off the block of Serviat and bowling out of bounds. Point for the Crusaders. Serving for the Crusaders will be Morris. Morris' serve goes out of bounds. Point for the Bobcats. It's serving for the Bobcats will be Rogman. Maxwell with the pass. Another overpass kill for Bolin, as that one was not as straight down as the last one, but he still got another overpass kill. Point for the Bobcats. Rogman serving for the Bobcats. His serve goes into the net.
Volleyball is a game of errors, and right now it seems to be a game of serving errors.
Serving for the Crusaders is Schaefer. Wall sets Serviat in the middle as he finds the back line. Point for the Bobcats and kill by Serviat. That was a nice 31 run. Back to serve for the Bobcats is Bolin. Polpo with the pass. Sullivan sets Maxwell in the back row. He tips over the block. Woolsey was able to get it. Wall played it off the net. Bolin sent it over. Sullivan sets Lawn on the back middle, and he gets that kill right in front of Rogman. Point for the Crusaders.
It's been a very back and forth game tonight.
Wall sets Graff on the outside, who tries to go high hands, unable to find any hands. Point for the Crusaders. Serviat ran into that ball. Wall saves it. Graff goes hands, gets hands. Maxwell is able to get there, and Sullivan tried to get there, but unable to get a second touch third touch, my bad, after Sullivan is able to get that up. Serving for the Bobcats now is Serviat. Substitute for the Crusaders as number 21, Carter Eck, is coming out for Maxwell. Valentine sends a free ball over. Serviat plays that. Graff gets a set on the outside. Valentine gets the dig. Saved by Eck. Gardner plays it. Wall sets Rogman at the opposite, as there is no touch call on the block, as 4 contacts are called out of the Bobcats. Point for the Crusaders. Serving for the Crusaders is 20 Long. His serve goes out of bounds. Point for the Bobcats. Serving for the Bobcats will be Wall. Substitute for the Crusaders as Maxwell comes back on for Eck. Sullivan was able to get a one-handed set to Morris the middle, and he was able to play that. Point for the Crusaders. Serving for the Crusaders now with Sullivan. Wall sets Gardner in the middle, and he tried to get answered. He swung little sidearmed as that set was a little too low for Gardner. As the Crusaders have a 3-point lead now, 15-12, and Sullivan serving.
Both teams are tied now with 21 attacking errors each.
Bolin with a shanked pass on that serve as Gardner and Rogman chased after that. As Coach Henry Toronto, the Bobcats, calls a timeout with the score 16-12 in favor of the Crusaders. 2-1. Crusaders are leading the sets.
Going into this timeout, the Crusaders are up with 40 kills to the Bobcats 32. The Bobcats have 22 attacking errors while the Crusaders only have 21. Both teams are pretty close in digs, the Crusaders having 38 and the Bobcats having 39. There have been a few reception errors with the Bobcats having 8 and the Crusaders having 6.
The Crusaders will serve after this timeout, leading 16-12. Sullivan serving. Bolin with the pass. Wall sets Rogman as that finds the back line. Point for the Bobcats. Kill for Rogman. Serving for the Bobcats now is Spencer Graff.
Rogman really wanted that one. He said he is not ready to give up yet.
Graff's serve goes long. Point for the Crusaders. Serving for the Crusaders is Maxwell. Graff with the pass. Wall sets Bolin on the outside, who goes around all the blocks, but there was no touch call as Bolin was looking for a touch on that, and it goes out of bounds. Point for the Crusaders, and Maxwell serving once again. Woolslayer with the pass. Wall sets Rogman on the opposite as Sullivan was unable to handle that. Point for the Bobcats. Serving for the Bobcats will be Gardner. Substitute for the Bobcats as Joseph Valadez is coming on for Gardner to serve.
Bobcats doing the best they can to fight back in this match.
Sullivan sets Maxwell on the back row off the block of Serviata, and Graff was unable to get there as the Crusaders get the point and the kill, as serving for the Crusaders is now coming onto the court first time, number 5 Mark Timmons on for William Morris. Graff with the pass. Wall sets Serviat in the middle on that 31. He's able to get that down. That's a great kill right there for Serviat. Potential momentum swing for the Bobcats right there as Rogman's back to serve now, 19-15. Lawn is called for a lift call as he tried to get that over the net after 2 bad passes, as Rogman is back to serve once again for the Bobcats.
Bobcats doing their best to fight back right now. Not ready to roll over.
Rogman's serve goes long, out of bounds, point for the Crusaders. And serve for the Crusaders is Schaefer. Wall sets Rogman as Rogman was able to get around a block of Pole and Lawn and get that in. Point for the Bobcats, and serve for the Bobcats will be Bolin. Bolin's serve goes long, out of bounds, point for the Crusaders.
You can tell fans are getting pretty frustrated with all these missed serves.
Serve for the Crusaders is Pole. Graph at the pass. Wall sets Serviat in the middle. Serviat tried to turn, and he turned too much, out of bounds. Point for the Crusaders. Henry Tron of the Bobcats takes this timeout with the score 22-17 in favor of the Crusaders. Well, the Crusaders are up 2-1.
The Bobcat Club is an organization providing assistance and support to student athletes within the Lees-McRae College 19-sport NCAA Division II athletics program. As our coaches work hard to build strong and competitive programs, it is gratifying to know the members of the Bobcat Club are there for financial and moral support. Thank you, Bobcat Club members, for your continuing support.
Coming out of this timeout, the Crusaders will be serving, and Pole will be the serve for the Crusaders. Wolfsire with the pass. That goes over as Long goes up, as they almost had a four contact call, but the bench was able to say that they were able to get four contacts, as the Bobcat players are voicing their concerns, thinking there was a net call on that. The Crusaders have Pole still serving. Wolfsire passes it. Wall tries to tip it over. Maxwell gets a dig. Pole gets this set in the back row as that his big ball goes out of bounds. Point for the Bobcats. Tyler Doyle's coming on to serve for the Bobcats instead of Hector Serviat.
We'll see if he can calm them down a bit.
Sullivan sets Lawn in the middle. Dug up by Rogman, goes over. Sullivan then sets Maxwell, who tips over the block, but Garner was able to get there on that block and get the point for the Bobcats, as the Bobcats are show a little bit more fight, as they are down 23-19 right now with Doyle serving. Sullivan sets Maxwell, who got the miscommunication, but he was able to get there and tip it right over for the kill. Substitution for the Crusaders as number 3, Lockwood comes on for Schaefer.
Going into set match here.
Lawn serving for the Crusaders on match point. Bolin with the pass. Wall sets Gardner in the middle, who gets down for that kill, as the Bobcats have an extra life right now, down 24-20 with Wall serving. Match point once again for the Crusaders. Sullivan sets Maxwell at the outside, who gets that kill right around the block of Rogman and Garner. Game, set, match as the Crusaders win the third set 25-20 and win the match 3-1.
It's been quite an interesting match to watch tonight. The Crusaders ending the match with a total of 43 kills, the Bobcats with a total of 37. Each team had quite a few attacking errors, the Crusaders with 23, the Bobcats with a total of 25. The biggest thing tonight were serving errors. The Crusaders ended the night with a total of 19 and the Bobcats with a total of 15. I'd like to thank you for watching the game with us tonight.
Once again, we'd like to thank you for listening to this broadcast of Lees-McRae College's Sport Management Program. We hope to catch you next time we're broadcasting our sports events live.